Hello, BookTube. I've got some miscellaneous books that I've read recently that I want to talk to you about. Just a little book report here that I want to slip into my roster of days videos. I made a bunch of other videos, but I like talking to you, and I've got the time. I've got all day and all night. So I thought I would do that. It's a much cooler, much more temperate day. It's black and white compared to yesterday, or the 4 days before that. So it's pleasant to have air going through the place that doesn't involve an air conditioner. That's really pleasant. And the walk, Bean and I will go on a walk as soon as I'm done with this video, and it will be more pleasant than any walk we've had in quite some time. But I've gone through just a handful of books. I promise this won't be. I've made a few 40-minute videos today, and that feels like such an imposition on your time. So I'll just go through a few either books that I've mentioned recently or maybe that I haven't, and tell you a little bit about what I thought of them. Some of them, or actually the first of them is old, so it won't affect your bookstore shopping. And that's something we just saw on this channel. It's this thing. Broadsides by Mordecai Rickler, by the very talented novelist Mordecai Rickler. And this is a Penguin Canadian mass market paperback of his occasional work. Essays on politics, on Gary Hart, or Broadway, or books. And I found the book essays in here to be the weakest part of the thing, full of private grievances and bromides and whatnot, not really worth reading. The Broadway stuff, the plays and the television and the politics were all more entertaining. There's where I got a little bit of an echo of the Mordecai Rickler prose that I find in his novels, but not much. Not much. And foremost thing that I was noticing about this thing is how inconvenient mass market paperbacks are. They are just so inconvenient. They snap shut. The minute I stop paying attention to this thing, the minute I reach for a pencil or to answer a phone call or anything like that, it snaps shut with, maybe no way to get right back, a little bit of fumbling. Just mass market paperbacks, books, physical printed books just in general are so much less convenient than ebooks. But a mass market paperback that's so tightly bound like this, believe it or not, I know it's saying it's really sliding Mordecai Rickler, but it was a foremost impression as I was finishing the book was how inconvenient it was to read. So I don't know that I will keep this. It feels a little bit heretical to get rid of it when I don't have a trade or a hardcover copy, but I think I'll probably just wait for a trade or hardcover copy. I don't think I'll be revisiting this anytime soon, and I don't think I want to reread it in this format. I think I'll just send this back to the brattle from whence it came. This next one we saw yesterday, and I put it on my list right away. I read it last night, and I loved it. It was great. It was this thing, On the Origin of the Deadliest Pandemic in 100 Years by Elaine Dewar, part of Biblioasis' Field Notes series. And this is all about the very earliest known origins of COVID-19, the earliest reports of it, the way it spread in the media, the way it spread as a viral vector just in the physical world. And I have been saying for months now, for half a year or more, that it is too early to write a history of COVID-19 because COVID-19 is still wreaking havoc with the whole world and with my own country. Hundreds and hundreds of people being hospitalized every day. Thousands of people being infected, predictably, so that we knew it was going to happen. If you have a huge outdoor rally to exercise your right to be a motorcycle aficionado, you're gonna cause a gigantic 1,000% spike in infection rates. It's just going to happen. So it's an ongoing story, and I have been saying that in print and in private and in my reading. I've been saying, I know you want to be the first one out of the gate. Lawrence Wright did the pandemic year, the plague year, where he wrote about the first year of COVID-19. It wasn't completely successful. Efforts like that really haven't been. This is just about the origins, and as such, it is the kind of book that you can write. Not completely, because I believe there's a large amount we don't know about the origins and are being intentionally stymied from knowing. But boy, oh boy, was this good. Now, I should remind myself here. This comes out in the middle of September from Biblioasis, and it's going to be $18.95 in a trade paperback. So it's going to look probably like this. And I can't recommend it enough. I don't know if your bookstore will carry Biblioasis titles. I don't know if they will or not. I don't know if they'll model this. But I wanted to make sure I put it on your radar again, especially now that I've read it. If you are interested in this subject, and you really should be, it's the biggest historical event to engulf the world in our lifetimes. And you are, if like me, you've been looking at all these things and wondering, is it any good? Is it somebody, sharpening a private grievance? Is it rumoring? Is it that sort of thing? This is the book you want to read. This is tremendously good on every aspect of the origin of COVID-19. So I just read it, loved it. I wanted to make sure that I recommended it. Then another thing that I also just read, this is a reread. I got the paperback. I didn't think that I would like this. I didn't like it originally. And it turns out I needed a little bit of that time to see some of the good things in it. The bad things still outweigh the good things enormously. But this is an English language translation of Gregor Hens's book, Nicotine, about his life with smoking, about his attempts to quit smoking, about what life is like as a nicotine addict, about what life is like as a recovering nicotine addict, someone who's no longer ingesting this drug 30, 50 times a day. When I read it originally, when I got the advanced copy and then the finished copy, and this is the paperback. And when I read it originally, I hated it, because despite all of the authors wobbling back and forth on the spectrum of, clearly denoting how dangerous this habit is, how it's dangerous to you, it's dangerous to everyone around you, it was still, that first reading, I still came out saying, there's no one who reads this who's a tobacco addict who's even going to consider quitting. Instead, they're going to finish this book and think, I'm just about the coolest person in the world. This is just about the coolest thing that any human being can do. And I hated that, because those addicts know it's not. Their own personal experience knows it's not. They know what it does to their sense of taste. They know what it does to their ability to climb one flight of stairs. They know what it does to their social acceptability. They know that it's not the coolest thing in the world. They can physically feel it. But I thought, when I finished this the first time, I thought it gives you the ultimate rationale to get out of all of that and keep being an addict. And the large part of the reason why this book does that, why it will cause that kind of reinforcement in the people who read it, is the beauty of the author's prose. The author's a fantastic writer. Absolutely fantastic writer. If this had been a slim little book about his love of single hull sailing, I couldn't praise it enough. Instead, it's a slim book of his hymn of praise to heroin addiction, cocaine addiction. Same thing. It takes an even-handed intellectual look at this drug that has the whole world in its grip, that gets tens of thousands of new addicts every day. It holds an equitable view of that intellectually, but the prose is rapturous, and there's no way to get around that. There's no way to get around the elevating feel of that in connection with the subject. There's just no way to do that. I don't know of a way to do that. At least I should say that. I'm not capable of doing that. I reread this. The publisher was nice enough to send me this paperback, so I reread it. I tend to read or reread everything I get sent. If somebody goes to the bother of sending me something, I tend to give it attention, at least a little. And I confess, I went into this with my mental arms folded. I thought, I already know what my reaction to this book is, and it still is. This is the ultimate recruitment pamphlet to make you a tobacco addict. When there's no upside, it hurts every system of your body. It hurts everyone around you. The research on that has been largely institutionally discouraged or bought off by big tobacco, because they don't want other people to think, oh, okay, so you went out to the porch to smoke, now you're back in, and I don't want to read any popular news reports saying that your body and your breath are still giving off active carcinogens, that are pumping them into the room. I don't want to think that. I want to think I'm completely safe if you go out onto a porch. All of that is still true about this. But I have to admit, I enjoyed the reread. I may actually keep this book because of how beautifully the author writes. And it's not all about his addiction. Whenever it's about his addiction, the addiction is hauled on in just about the most favorable right that you could do. But it's about a lot of other things, too. It's about friendship, and also a theme running through here that I kept cropping up that I didn't notice the first time was faith. Religious faith. And also the scene descriptions, the place descriptions, the settings, the dramaturgy here is even better than I remembered. So I don't know what to do. This is the very, very rare instance of a book in which I don't know what to do when it comes to you. I'm not talking to myself here, after all. I don't hear from anybody saying you could have fooled me. I'm talking to you about books, and I honestly don't know what to do about this. in terms of, what my whole relationship with new releases is to tell you about whether or not you should read them. Basically, about what they have to recommend themselves for your time and your money. I value those things very, very much. A whole lot more, as one of you pointed out, than I value them for myself. I have more of them than you do, not money. So a freelance reviewer's life is not a rich pickings, but time. I have a lot more of that than most of you. Curl up into a coma at 8:30, and you look longingly at that coma from 7 o'clock on. At 7:15, you're saying, "Is it too early to go to bed? Oh, I can't wait to go to bed." You curl up gratefully into a coma and stay in that coma until 8:30 the next morning. Ridiculous. It's horrifying. One way or another, I don't know what to do with this book. I don't know what to do when it comes to talking about it in that proactive way. It is a beautiful reading experience. I can say that without any qualms. It is a beautiful reading experience. But I'm sure that the author would tell me, if the author is still alive, hasn't died of the lung cancer, that this product gives to 100% of its habitual users. Not 10%, that's big tobacco, buying results. Not 20%, that's big tobacco, buying results. Not 30%, that's big tobacco, buying results by sending scientists on all expense-paid trips to conferences in Antigua. You sure that data's right? I couldn't help but notice your kids going to an expensive school. I'd be happy to underwrite that. We have an education outreach program. Sure would be a relief on your family budget, wouldn't it now? But are you sure that data's right? 100% of the people who use this product habitually die of lung cancer. 100%. It's as deadly as a gunshot to your mouth. That's what it is. It's a gunshot to your mouth. And yet, because this book is so beautifully written, I can't help but think that someone reading it even now in the 21st century, in the full light of what we know, might think, okay, well, this sounds like a really cool thing to do. I think I'll give it a try. The author pretends to quit, so maybe I can too. It won't be a big deal. I'll try it, see what it's like. The world that he describes, the addict's world, is so enticing because of his skill as a writer that maybe I'll try that world for a while. I don't want you to do that. Obviously, I don't want you to do that. This book ought to come with a gigantic warning label right on the front. I don't know how much good those warning labels do on packs of cigarettes, but this book ought to come with a warning like that. It will make its fair share of addicts. And naturally, that's a negative reaction of mine. But this time around, when I was reading it the second time, just for this book report, I was impressed all over again by how beautifully done it is, even though it's doing something evil. It's not misguided, and it's not neutral. It's objectively, actively evil to try on any level, and you can't tell me all the levels here are unconscious, to try to make more tobacco addicts in the world. That is just evil to want to do that. But I'm not just going to give you, if I do these book reports, I'm not just going to give you the books that I had completely untrammeled opinions about, right? I'm going to give you the whole spectrum. Then this next one is one that I don't think we saw on this channel. I think I opened it off camera. This is by Claire Carlisle, who was the editor of a volume we saw on this channel a couple of years ago of a new edition of George Eliot's translations of the Ethics of Spinoza. Baruch Spinoza wrote a book, and George Eliot translated it, and I have often lamented, I lamented for years before that book turned out, why we don't always see multiple mainstream published editions of George Eliot's translations. Why is that the case? This is one of the greatest authors in the English language. And we don't treat our great authors this way, and yet we treat her this way. So I was overjoyed when Spinoza's Ethics came out. And it was edited by Claire Carlisle, and she did a great job. She did a really great job. You might think it's self-evident, but it's not. It takes a lot of work to make such a great edition of that translation. And she came out with a new book called Spinozas Religion, which I think is meant to be a little rabble-rousing right there in the title, because Spinoza didn't have a religion. So on the one hand, a review of this book could say, Spinoza's Religion by Claire Carlisle is an empty set. Spinoza didn't have a religion. Famously didn't have a religion, even though could cost him his life. He didn't. But this turns out to be much more complex than that. It's really, I think, more accurately described as Spinoza's thoughts on religion, which is fascinating in its own right. Let me read you a little bit about it, because I don't think we saw it on this channel. Spinoza is widely regarded as either a God-forsaking atheist or a God-intoxicated pantheist. He was a God-forsaking atheist. I don't know about this widely regarded business. He's not an ambiguous figure. But Claire Carlyle says that he was neither. In this book, she sets out a bold interpretation of Spinoza through a lucid new reading of his masterpiece, The Ethics. Putting the question of religion center stage but refusing to convert Spinozism to Christianity, Carlyle reveals that, quote, being in God unites Spinoza's metaphysics and ethics. Spinoza's religion unfolds a powerful, inclusive philosophical vision for the modern age, one that is grounded in a profound questioning of how to live a joyful life and a fully human one. Like Spinoza himself, the Ethics doesn't fit into any ready-made religious category. Oh, no, it doesn't fit in any ready-made religious category. It's an atheist text. It's a humanist text. But Carlyle shows how it wrestles with the question of religion in strikingly original ways, responding both critically and constructively to the diverse, broadly Christian context in which Spinoza lived and worked. So I want to put this to your attention just in case you already know about Spinoza and are interested in him. This is a book not to miss. This is an author not to miss. I'm sure I'm not the only one who read that translation, George Eliot's translation of Spinoza, who read Carlyle's edition of that and wanted a book by her about Spinoza herself. And now we have it. I want to put this in front of you in case that is the case, and I also want to use this as an example to recommend Claire Carlyle's edition of George Eliot's translation of Spinoza's Ethics. If that's not too obscure for you, I wanted to put this forward as a chance to show this book to you and recommend both this and the lovely paperback edition of Spinoza's Ethics. If you haven't read Spinoza, you really should. There's that. And then we'll finish up. We won't stray far from religion, and we won't stray far from contesting religion. This is a big new book. I think this comes out in September. Do I have a date on this? Yeah, this comes out in September. The pub sheet, this is from Prometheus Books, and the pub sheet doesn't give a specific date in September. But September's right around the corner, so I don't know if your bookstore carries Prometheus Books. Again with the slurping. Bean, will you stop with the slurping, baby? Your slurping is so distracting. But this is a book coming out from Prometheus Press in September. I don't think we saw it on this channel. I think I opened it off camera. And it had one of those obnoxious big not for review stickers on it that leaves, even when you peel the sticker off, it leaves a huge residue of extremely adhesive glue behind. So I had to cover it with tape. I couldn't leave that there. The easy way to rip the cover to shreds is if I put something on top of it and they stick to each other. This is by John Campbell, who's an attorney, and this is called Cross-Examined, Putting Christianity on Trial. That's why this looks the way it does, because the sticker was right there. So I had to put tape over that so it wasn't sticking to everything inside. Big, thick thing that is a gigantic, soup-to-nuts approach to examining not only Christianity, but Christian apologetics. So not just the historicity of Jesus. Did he actually exist as a historical person? Is there any reliable history anywhere in the New or Old Testament? Are there any fulfilled testaments in the Old Prophecy that come true in the New or in the present world? Are there any substantial Christian apologetic arguments in the 21st century that hold any water at all, that can't be easily blasted out of the tub? And on and on and on. Is it possible to have a coherent moral framework without Christianity? And does Christianity provide a coherent moral framework? The whole scope. You'll get whole atheist tracks on little bits of that. This is all of that put together. And the author opens up. It's extremely good. It's extremely comprehensive. Big, thick thing. And the author opens up the book by pointing out something that really bears repeating, which is that Christianity is not just the biggest religion in the world. It's the biggest social force in the history of the world. By a wide margin. It's the biggest social force. It touches every life on earth in some way or other, and has for the last 2,000 years. That's huge. Absolutely huge. And that is John Campbell's justification for going at it at this length, for leaving no stone unturned in his examination of Christianity. What it is, where it comes from, what it does, what it claims. I love these kinds of books anyway. I found this absolutely fascinating and fantastic too. One of the things I loved about it, that I think if you're vaguely interested in this subject, but maybe you've been put off by the last few books you've read, one of the qualities of this book that I really, really appreciated is how respectful it is. John Campbell's not attacking anyone's faith. He's attacking a religion, an organized religion, and its fact claims. He's not attacking anyone's faith. and is very, very respectful of that fact throughout the book. Endlessly thought-provoking, just endlessly so. So in September, if you're interested in this subject, this is a book. If maybe you have some of the other famous books on this subject, this is one you can't miss. So there you go. Bit of a book report for today. We have Cross-Examined, putting Christianity on trial. We have Spinozas Religion, in which his greatest living editor makes the case that he did have an organized religion of a kind, and more importantly, goes through the ethics in order to make that case. That's the fun of the book. Carlyle is a great reader of Spinoza. Then you have Nicotine, now in paperback, about the author's struggles with, life without smoking. Then we have On the Origin of the Deadliest Pandemic in 100 Years. This is brand new. This is coming out soon. And it is about the origins of COVID-19, not just the biological or laboratory origins, but the origins of COVID-19 in the public awareness. When did it have its origin in your mind? Through the news, through news reports. Utterly fantastic. And finally, Broadsides by Mordecai Rickler, which did have worth to it, but I need it in a paperback or a trade paperback. I can't deal with this mass market anymore, so I'm not gonna. And there you go. That is book reports of just stuff that I've been reading recently. You may or may not have seen. You may or may not be interested in. Thought I'd put it before you. And now the Bean and I are going to go on a walk. And I am not going to upload any more videos today. You've had more than enough of this face to last you a day. Okay? So I'm going to go. But I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.